Think of a memory you trust completely. Maybe it's a kitchen from your childhood. Maybe it's a beach or a snowstorm or the day you got a certain phone call. You can still step inside it. You can see where everyone was standing. You could describe the light. Now here's the strange, gentle truth we're going to sit with today. Part of that scene almost certainly never happened. Not because something is wrong with you, because of how memory is built. Maybe you've had the argument. You and your brother or your sister or an old friend telling a story from years ago, and your versions don't match. You remember it happening to you. They remember it happening to them. Someone laughs and says, "You weren't even there." And you feel a small jolt of unease. Because you can see it. How can something that vivid be wrong? Most of us carry a quiet assumption about memory. We think it works like a video camera. Life gets recorded, the recording gets filed away, and remembering is just pressing play. So if a memory is bright and detailed, we take that as proof that it's accurate. But that's not how it works, not even close. And the real story is stranger, and in the end, kinder than you might think. Almost 100 years ago in Cambridge, England, a psychologist named Frederick Bartlett ran a deceptively simple experiment. He gave British students a Native American folk tale called The War of the Ghosts, a story full of ideas that were unfamiliar to them, and asked them to retell it from memory. Then again later, and again. What he found changed psychology. With every retelling, the story quietly transformed. Canoes became boats. Strange, unfamiliar details simply disappeared. Events were reordered until the tale flowed the way an English story was supposed to flow. The students weren't lying. They weren't being careless. Their minds were smoothing the story, reshaping it to fit what already made sense to them. Bartlett called this effort after meaning. And his conclusion still stands today. Memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds the scene from fragments. A few genuine details, plus everything you know, believe, and feel right now. And here's the part that surprises almost everyone. When your brain rebuilds a memory, the rebuilt version is what gets stored. It's like opening a document, editing it, even slightly, and saving it over the original. Do that for 30 years. And what you're remembering isn't the event anymore. It's your last retelling of the event. Scientists call this process reconsolidation, and it means your most told stories may be your most edited ones. If that sounds too strange to be true, let me show you how easy it is to edit a memory from the outside. In 1974, a young researcher named Elizabeth Loftus, working with John Palmer, showed people short films of car accidents. Afterwards, she asked a simple question: how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? Except for some people, she changed one word. Not hit, smashed. That single word changed what people remembered. The smashed group estimated higher speeds. And a week later, when everyone was asked whether they'd seen broken glass in the film, the smashed group was more than twice as likely to say yes. There was no broken glass. One word planted after the event had quietly written a new detail into their memory of it. Loftus kept going. In 1995, she and Jacqueline Pickrell tried something bolder. With help from participants' own families, they gathered 3 true stories from each person's childhood and slipped in a 4th story that was completely invented. That as a small child, the person had been lost in a shopping mall, had cried, and had been rescued by a kindly, elderly woman. About 1 in 4 participants came to remember it. Not just accept it, remember it. Some added details no one had given them: what the woman wore, how the fear felt, the relief of being found. When they were finally told one of the 4 stories was false, some couldn't tell which one. A careful modern replication of this study in 2023 found the effect again, this time in about a third of participants. Sit with that for a moment. A whole childhood memory, emotional, detailed, sincerely felt, built out of nothing but a suggestion. But maybe you're thinking, fine, small memories can be bent. Surely the big ones are different. The moments that mark us, surely those are burned in. That's exactly what psychologists used to believe. They even had a name for it: flashbulb memories. As if shock made the brain take a perfect photograph. Then, on the morning after the Challenger space shuttle exploded in January 1986, 2 researchers, Ulrich Neisser and Nicole Harsch, asked more than 100 students to write down exactly how they'd heard the news, where they were, who told them, what they felt, all of it on paper, less than a day after the event. About 3 years later, they asked the same people the same questions. The results were quietly stunning. Many of the new accounts were completely different. A different room, a different messenger, a different story altogether. And yet the students were confident. When some were shown the page in their own handwriting from the morning after, they were so sure of their new memory that they doubted the old page instead. Their own handwriting, and they trusted the edited memory more. That's the finding worth keeping. Vividness is not evidence. A memory can feel like high-definition truth and still be a reconstruction, lovingly redrawn by the brain that carries it. So what do we do with all this? It would be easy to feel unsettled, to feel like the floor of your own past just shifted. But turn the question around. Why would nature build a brain that edits its own history? If accurate records mattered most, evolution had every chance to make one. Here's the reframe. Memory was never meant to be an archive. Its job is not to store your past. Its job is to help you live, to pull lessons out of what happened and use them to imagine what's next. A flexible memory can blend experiences, update old conclusions, soften what needs softening. The same machinery that redraws yesterday is the machinery that lets you picture tomorrow. Harvard memory researcher Daniel Schachter has spent a career showing that memory's famous flaws are really byproducts of its strengths. The price of a mind built for meaning, not filing. And notice something gentle in all of this. The details drift, but the feelings tend to hold. You may have the kitchen wrong, the year wrong, even who was there wrong, but the warmth you remember, the love, the fear, the pride, the belonging, that was real. Your memory lets go of the inventory and keeps the meaning. In its own way, it keeps what mattered. So let this change three small things. The next time you argue with someone about the past, remember, both of you can be honest and both of you can be wrong. We remember it differently is often the truest sentence available and the kindest. For the moments you truly want to keep, give them an anchor outside your head. Write them down soon. Keep the photo. Not because your memory is broken, but because that's what paper is for. And be a little careful what you rehearse. Every retelling reshapes the memory, and the reshaped version is the one you'll keep. So when you tell your own story to others or quietly to yourself, tell the kind version. Because your past isn't a place you visit, it's a story you're still telling, and you have some say in how it's told.